In a few months since we last did a whole show about how Hamas lies in the numbers that they report, specifically the number of deaths they report in the war in Gaza. Um, and this isn't exactly such an episode. We The Henry Jackson Society just released a report detailing how the media uses those numbers and how those numbers are fabricated. We're going to go through some of that report, and we're going to talk about some of what the media does here and why. Here are a few just general details about what's in the report. You can find it. You can find a link to it in the description and in the live chat if you're watching live. So this report was conducted between February and May of 2024. It looked at 1,378 articles from major news outlets in the West and English-speaking countries. Now, in those reports, those news reports, 98% of those reports cited Hamas's fatality figures. Those are the numbers that we now hear is over 40,000 or 45,000 or something like that. So 98% of them cited those numbers. 5% cited Israeli numbers. Israel obviously disputes those numbers. The problem in Israel's case is it also says it's difficult to know at this point in a war what those numbers are, and people don't like indecisive, incomplete answers, even when you don't actually have the information required for a decisive and complete answer. So people, well, I'm giving them an excuse for using Hamas numbers, but that is, maybe one of the reasons why they would claim that they use those numbers. 84% of those reports made no distinction between civilians and terrorists, which of course is what Hamas wants you to do. If you make no distinctions, then the assumption is that they're all civilians. Now, 19% of reports didn't cite the source of the numbers. We've been hearing often media outlets say 40,000 people have been killed so far, according to the Hamas-led Gaza Ministry of Health. So that's 19% of reports don't even do that when they cite Hamas numbers, and again, 98% cite the numbers of the people who started this war. Interestingly, this war started on October 7th, so 14 months and 10 days ago. 14 months ago to the day was the infamous Al Ali hospital bombing, as it was reported. And it was reported immediately when Hamas said, if Hamas was actually going to tell you what's happening, they would say there's been a massive explosion, at least initially. There's been a massive explosion. We're looking into it, because they had no idea what happened initially. I'm sure they knew what happened long before they actually told the world, but what actually happened is, so what they said, Israel bombed the hospital, 500 people died. They got that number immediately, and that number was repeated unquestioningly immediately. Yeah, after that incident, when what actually happened was a misfired Islamic Jihad rocket aimed at killing Jews, ended up killing a few dozen Palestinians in the parking lot of the hospital. Some news outlets didn't stop reporting Hamas numbers, but they added this, from the Gaza Health Ministry run by Hamas. So not all do that. We're going to go through a bit of the other numbers there and some of the other details from the report throughout this show. But yeah, the media. I don't think any of this is news, except the specific numbers that the Henry Jackson Society did a great work at getting to, but it's not news to the news either, to the news outlets, to the media outlets that choose to do this. So why is it that they choose to promote what they know is lies? Welcome to the Daily Objective. Daniel, your thoughts on why the media does this?
So, well, we have someone in the chat saying, I hope Israel sues all these corrupt media outlets. And well, first of all, I don't know how that would work, but let's say it was like a media that was in Israel that Israel had jurisdiction over, and they did this, which I assume many of them do. The thing is, they on like a legal matter, they are not doing anything wrong. They are just reporting the numbers. But on the moral side, I think you really have to look in what are they reporting. Razi, I'm sure you know, there's that statistic about black crime in America. It's like, oh, 13% of the population, but they commit 50% of the crime. And when usually a lot of racists say this statistic, they say, well, I'm just saying a statistic, but they are doing basically like wink, wink. They want you to take a certain information from that. And so something similar is going on here that, there's, well, this is just the numbers. This is what we have the numbers. This is what they are. We are not doing anything wrong. We are not doing, but they are doing something similar. They are doing this, by not putting those numbers in context. I think I don't have that specific. It's everybody should read the report. It's a pretty good read, and they mention how many times it's even mentioned that it's from Hamas. How many times? I mean, even if they say that it's Hamas numbers, it's still the numbers that are used. It's still the numbers that we'll have one clip later. It's just put out there. It's just repeated. There is no analysis of where are those numbers from? What is the methodology behind those numbers? How reliable are the numbers? There's nothing like that. When you just put the number out there and then you have it repeated over and over again. I mean, whenever the numbers are talked about, there's always like a number that's remembered. Right now it's around 45,000. And whenever it's mentioned, people just say, well, it's around 45,000. And again, it's sort of re-reported, sort of re-repeated into, what is that quote when you repeat a lie? A number of times it becomes true or something like that. Is that like a Nazi quote? I feel like it's a Nazi quote.
Yeah, that's Devils.
Yeah. And yeah, it's something similar. It's just repeat. It's similar to the Lancet number. It's what is that one? 186,000. And we just heard it. We talked about Lancet recently, and one person recited the number. He said 168,000. And you see the stupidity of it because that number is old now. It should be a new number. Yet just because it's big and it's bigger than what it is repeated again without any context. Before we go further, I just want to mention one thing from Hamas numbers specifically from the past. Because my understanding was that in the past the numbers were or after the war the numbers were okay, but actually in the or sort of like close enough that basically between, let's say, Hamas, international organizations, and Israel. But one thing they brought up in the report specifically was during the Operation Cast Lead, which was in 2008 to January 2009. At first, and this was actually changed later, at first Hamas claimed that 1,300 people died, but only 94 combatants died. So that's like 95% like civilian dead or something like that. When IDF did its own investigation, they found out that it was basically around 60% were combatants. So like 709 out of like 1,166. And Hamas later accepted that figure. They said, "Oh yeah, this is actually this one." So they've lied. They had a they had the wrong figure. They were called out on it, and they had to change it later. So now, when you check, because I think last time I was specific checking Wikipedia. Now, when you check it, they do. It seems like, well, in the past they've reported in a similar way. No, they have reported it wrongly, and then they changed it. So now it looks like no, they were reporting it exactly the same in the same way. So yeah, Hamas lies even when you check past conflicts. And again, the fact that the number is sort of taken on its own or just with a disclaimer. I just make a similar comparison. It's like when you say disclaimer, this is not a financial advice, and then you talk about how you can make 15% in 1 month. It's like that doesn't work. It doesn't work in a similar way. And it's similar just because you say it's Gaza held ministry. Some of them don't even mention Hamas, but just because you say Gaza held ministry, it's not automatic that the thing is, there is nothing to do with this number. It's like there is just a number put out, but what the hell am I supposed to do with this number when I have no context of how accurate it is, and how are you supposed to use it? You're just supposed to take it emotionally. A lot of people died, and that's the takeaway this media wants you to take.
Yeah, that's the thing. What the hell are you supposed to do with the numbers is a generally a good question here. The numbers don't matter objectively. It doesn't matter how many people died. What matters is, why is there a war? Who started it? What are they fighting for? What are the sides fighting for? And how does it end in with the best possible resolution? And for that to happen, Israel would undoubtedly, considering how Hamas fights, undoubtedly have to kill many more Palestinians, or many more Palestinians would have to die in this war than Hamas claims have already died. So in what sense does this actually matter? Well, it matters in the sense that there is a certain push here. There's a certain ideas that we are expected to accept, and we're expected to accept them if they are pushed on us in a certain way. So the media tells us that whatever number Hamas has given is the number of deaths. And then organizations, experts, human rights organizations, the UN tell us that what this means is that it's a genocide, even though that's not what it means, even if the numbers are correct. But all of this is part of trying to frame things in a certain way that will end up with the world supporting the people who did October 7th over the people who are the victims of October 7th, who are trying to prevent another October 7th from happening. So yeah, the media knows that Hamas lies. They knew it before El Ali Hospital. They knew it with every past incident of Hamas starting a war or starting a battle, and Israel reacting half-heartedly, and then Hamas telling us how many people died, and every single time they lie about it. So yeah, there is an agenda here by the media. The fact that people tell you that they are just reporting the news doesn't mean that it is so, and people should pay close attention. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Razi, the Irish president has greeted the Palestinian ambassador as Israel leaves. I dislike that Irish president. Vomiting emojis. Yeah, well, good. I want the Irish, at least the Irish leadership, to show the world who they are. I like that the battle lines are drawn. I'll say a bit more about what I think about what the U.S. might do, but I would still hope that the U.S. will actually fully side with Israel, and that the other side shows clearly where it stands. It stands with Hamas and with Hezbollah and with Iran and with anybody in the Middle East who will oppress their own people and commit to the extermination of the Jews. That's what it means, and we need to keep telling those who would tell us otherwise that that's what it means. You don't care about women and children, even though you claim you do, and we'll get to the women and children part of the report in a minute. You don't. What you care about is more October 7th, as the Palestinians have promised, more of that happening again and again. Yeah, some people will stand up against that. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, truth and Hamas do not mix. No, they don't. But the media tries to mix them and package whatever comes out for us, for our consumption. And unfortunately, people use that. People use that in ways. Actually, you know what? Let's see one of the ways in which people use that. This is from a few months ago. It's from July, I believe, but still very, very much relevant. Yeah, you have that clip ready.
If you're more angry about a bit of red paint on the road than you are about the mass slaughter of tens of thousands of people, including tens of thousands of little children, then I think, I'm afraid, you need your head checked out.
Is that figure not, though,
yeah,
wrong?
I'll be clear.
Wrong?
That figure, so the official death figures are 40,000. That's an underestimate for a start, because they exclude the number buried under the rubble. At least according to the official statistics, 16,000 or 14,000 children plus have been killed. The reason it's an underestimate, and this figure is based on 4 public health professors who've written to The Lancet, which is the most prestigious medical journal on earth, and they point out in wars, the vast majority of people do not die of violence, they die of other causes. So if you look at Yemen, you have the direct... Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, one example, the Gaza's health system has been destroyed. Every single hospital has been bombed. There is no properly functioning hospital in Gaza. Imagine, and we didn't have a war in this country, imagine every single hospital was blown up.
Right. Okay. So yeah, he cites that most prestigious media, and that's what they do. You know, they say these are the experts. These are the people who, if they say something, you need to believe them. That's how they present it, and then they present whatever these people come up with. Now we've covered the Lancet bullshit in 3 different articles. We 3 different shows. We've gone through their lies. But look at how easily Owen Jones, and he's actually being asked about it here, which is unusual. He's being asked, isn't this number kind of bullshit? And he doesn't mention in his defense of the number, he says it's official numbers. Yes, it's official numbers of the people who committed the atrocities. But you see, even within the media, how, okay, there's the news, and they report this stuff, and then, of course, it's true. And you can see with... I haven't seen the full segment there. All I saw was this short, but you can see his co-panelist from the Institute of Economic Affairs. This is the British right. I don't know what she said beyond that, but thrown out there when he says people die from of different causes, and she goes, yeah, starvation. Why? Because starvation is something that we've been told is happening. We've done multiple episodes about how that is a complete lie. We know that Israel provides more humanitarian aid, more calories per person in Gaza than is the recommended daily amount for an adult in the UK. But it provides that, and of course it shouldn't. And of course, starvation of an enemy that refuses to surrender in a war is a good thing if your enemy, are savages who started this war, and you know that them surrendering means the end of the war, with the good guys winning. That would be a good thing. But no, we hear certain things. We hear, genocide, starvation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if those things are defined. It doesn't matter if those things are true. All that matters is that they're said, and they're said again and again. And as you mentioned, they become the truth, at least in the way that people see it.
Yeah, and even during the video, just listen. If you listen to it, listen to the way he talks about, these scientists or these professors are writing for this prestigious journal. Again, it wasn't an article; it was just an opinion piece with pretty much no basis in reality. It basically took the number they got from Gaza, it multiplied by 4, and that was the new number. Again, that's the whole reason. That's the whole way they've got it. It's incredible the way that's been used. But again, it's not surprising. That was the purpose of it. And you have to. We don't have much more time to go through the report. But the report talks about how these numbers that they have, even from Gaza, include things like cancer patient deaths. Include like basically a lot of natural deaths that shouldn't be included in it. They are just very misproperly attributed, and that fake number is taken. It's made in a new fake number that said it includes like people under the rubble. Which again, in some cases, is already included a number. So it's a whole mess, and it's being used. It's being used so. I almost sort of like yesterday. I want to say naively, but it's not naive. It's evil. There is a purpose for using the numbers like this. It's to make it as terrible as they can make it sound to be. They refer to experts, and it's always the same thing. They lie on purpose. Or they are, at the very least, they are omitting what's true. They are omitting the context. They are absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think I had one more thing to say about this.
Well, while you think about it, I'll just quickly read out Bonnie's excellent comment here. Bonnie says, the Gaza Health Ministry has been destroyed, but we still accept the numbers that they somehow managed to put out. Yeah, yeah. Owen Jones there is saying, look, every hospital has been destroyed. Yeah, well, but somehow they still have accurate numbers. And interestingly, they have zero numbers of combatants in any of those. When Owen Jones talks in July about 40,000 deaths and tens of thousands of children, and then he says, well, it's 13,000 children and so on. Yeah, there is never ever a mention of terrorists who, if they were not among the people in Gaza, there would be no war, and this is known to the pro-Hamas side, and yet they are telling us otherwise. Yeah, did you find what you wanted to say?
No, there's a separate point. I mean, it's built upon what you said about they are not reporting combatant deaths, but that's what. But it's also that's how. Well, it's not that they don't report combatant deaths. It's they don't distinguish between. They are just saying this is the people that died, and but how people are taking it, many times they take it as this is the civilian number. This is just how many civilians have died during this conflict, and I think the report even has some statistics on it from the research they've done. I'm not sure if we mention it. It would be good to mention the articles they went through. So they analyzed CNN, BBC News, New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, Associated Press, Reuters, and Australian ABC. So not just some random newspaper they found to make up the numbers. This is basically how probably most people in the world get their medias from this. And they're viewed sort of as like a mainstream, not like they analyzed Al Jazeera or something like that. So only 3% of the articles included the number of combatants in reported fatality deaths, fatality totals. Again, those when they include it, it's usually they only have the numbers from the IDF. They cannot report anything from Hamas because Hamas doesn't report, or Gaza Health Ministry doesn't report any number of combatants dying.
Yeah, and remember, it was what 98% of the news stories and reports cited Hamas's figures, whereas 5% cited Israeli figures, and of those, half of those disputed them. Half of those questioned the credibility, according to the article about the report, questioned the credibility of the Israeli numbers. We very, very rarely see anybody question the credibility of Hamas's numbers. I want to read also a paragraph from this.
Let me just quickly get in a few more points. And I mean, for people, just think of yourself. When did you ever see any newspaper reporting on the IDF numbers? It's rare to see. When it comes to the Gaza Health Ministry number, I always know what it is because it's always reported anywhere. It's rare that I have to go and like check with the official website or the UN Humanitarian Affairs where they report on those or re-report on those. But when it comes to IDF numbers, I have to actively go look for it. I think right now, it's around 14,000. And even that, I think I've read from the report because no one reports on it. And, then what you get about this, basically, sort of IDF not reporting on the civilian numbers or basically saying, it's hard to know right now. They usually have the numbers after it. But then you have people like Piers Morgan, when he had, I think, Jonathan Corwin, the former IDF speaker, on, and he said, well, why doesn't IDF report numbers? This is all we have. Why doesn't report? And he used this accusatory statement. I mean, again, this is war. Imagine asking USA, how many Nazis did you kill? Oh, are you trying to hide something by not saying how many Nazis you killed? I mean, it's incredible. I mean, this is war.
Yeah, and Jeremy Bowen, who we've spoken about on this channel, took it a step further when he said about Hamas's numbers, well, those are the only numbers we have. What do you expect us to do? Not report numbers, which is really such an astonishing statement that I haven't seen anybody else, raise that point outside of this channel of, yes, you do not report numbers if the only source for those numbers are the terrorists who committed the atrocities on October 7th, an organization that exists only for the cause of exterminating the Jews, and that has repeatedly lied because you people, like Jeremy Bowen, decide to repeat what they say because you essentially agree with their cause. As Jeremy Bowen has actually said, he said that sometimes the truth is not in the middle, it's on one side, as his explanation of why he is promoting Hamas propaganda. I want to quickly read just one paragraph from the article in the Henry Jackson Society website about the report. Serious errors have been discovered on the ministry's list of fatalities. These errors include a 22-year-old registered as a 4-year-old, a 31-year-old registered as a 1-year-old, and several men with male first names registered as female, artificially increasing the number of women and children reported killed. The list also include people who died before the war and people who died from attacks by Hamas rather than the Israeli Defense Forces. Yes, remember, Hamas does not report on when they misfire rockets, and they fired many, many thousands of rockets, and a big percentage of those are misfired and end up in Gaza, killing Gazans. So those, they don't tell you when they intentionally kill Palestinians. You know, when Israel tells Palestinians, move away from this area because we're going to bomb it, often Hamas will not let them do that. And that very well may end in death. Now, again, we are saying something that is less marketable, less attractive as headlines. We don't know the numbers. We're also saying we don't care, and we shouldn't care about the numbers, but we don't know them. And you know, it's much sexier to say, look, these are the numbers, which means this is genocide, and which means that you know, we should globalize the Intifada or whatever it is we're supposed to. The takeaway is supposed to be. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says Israel needs to expose Hamas figures as lies more. Maybe, you know, to whom? One of my problems with the way Israel does things, both militarily and diplomatically. Militarily, it does things in a way that I think they're putting diplomatic goals above the military goals, and it's all kind of begging the world to accept Israel's existence, and it's specifically targeted at those who reject Israel's existence and support Israel's enemies. So yeah, you don't want to go to Ireland and beg them to reconsider and tell them actually the other side is the bad guys. You want to tell the world, to anybody who's, you know, semi-decent in the world, look, Ireland is on the side of terrorists. Ireland are the bad guys, and Spain are the bad guys, and Norway are the bad guys. And the people who choose to side with the Palestinians, knowing who they are the bad guys. Speaking of the Palestinians being the bad guys, we are going to offer them some suggestions on the reality show about how to end their supposed suffering that we hear so much about. Daniel, parting thoughts?
I recommend people checking out the report. It's not too long. It's about 30 pages, so it's a pretty quick read, and I think it really does provide good evidence about what's really going on. And also recommend checking out the last episode we did about Hamas numbers. That was from a different report, much earlier report, and when they found the problems with in the numbers itself, because contrary to the popular belief, it's really hard to lie with numbers. It's when you know math, when you know how statistics should work, it's really hard to like make up fake numbers and have it not shown in the numbers themselves. So definitely recommend both of those.
Thanks everybody for watching. The reality show starts in a couple of minutes. We'll see you there.